So Senator Josh Hawley, as we've been covering here, has been really leading the charge on backing the president's harebrained scheme to challenge the Electoral College results. In the Senate, he got pressed pretty aggressively by Bret Baier on Fox News. Let's take a look at that.
I just want to pin you down on what you're trying to do. You know, are you trying to say that as of January 20th, that President Trump will be president?
Well, that depends on what happens on Wednesday. I mean, this is why we have the debate.
No, it
This is
doesn't.
why
I mean,
we
the
have
states,
votes.
by the Constitution, say they certify the election. They did certify it. By the Constitution, Congress doesn't have the right to overturn the certification, at least as most experts read it.
Well, Congress is directed under the 12th Amendment to count the electoral votes. There's a statute that dates back to the 1800s, rather, 19th century, that says that there is a right to object, there's a right to be heard, and there's also a certification
Right,
process.
that's from 1876, Senator, and it's right. the Tilden-Hayes race, in which there were 3 states that did not certify their electors. So Congress was left to come up with this system, this commission, that eventually got to a negotiated grand bargain. But now all of the states have certified their elections as of December 14th. So it doesn't, by constitutional ways, open a door to Congress to overturn that, does it?
Yeah, he's right. And look, this is what I keep doing I did my radar on today. When you try and highbrow this thing and be like, and by the way, why are we pointing to the corrupt bargain, one of the worst episodes of American history, as precedent for something? When you try and highbrow this thing with, and there's a precedent and all that, you end up looking like that, right. where Bret Baier is correct. You are better off talking about how Dominion voting machine parts are removed from machines, because then at least you're not trying to deal within the realm of reality or fact. I think we should all be honest about what's happening here. Hawley and Cruz and others have made the calculation that this is going to be good for their 2024 or 2028 political runs, and that this will somehow endear them to the Trump base. I think that they're half right in the near term, and in the long term, they'll probably be beaten out in that case by somebody who's just willing to go full Dominion. And so I don't think this helps anybody. I think it was a big miscalculation, also with dramatic ramifications for the Electoral College in the future.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
There's like a few flavors of like Republicans and how they're approaching this process. So you've got people like Chip Roy who are blatantly against it and basically mocking the people who are for this. He's the one who challenged the seating of congressional delegations in the states that are in question, according to these people, of like, okay, if the election was rigged, then like, what are you doing in this congressional seat? Shouldn't we be asking questions about that as well? Tom Cotton, I also put in the category of someone who's been like very clear that this is an outrageous act. And those people cross the ideological spectrum. There isn't one like particular ideology that unites. So you've got that flavor. You got the flavor of people who are totally cynical, craven political actors. I would put like Matt Gaetz in that category, who are willing to go all in on Dominion voting.
And I respect that more.
They're willing
honestly.
to just the wildest, every single word that President Trump said on that insane phone call, they would be there to say like, amen, sir, you're 100% correct. There's that flavor. Yeah. There's the people that are too dumb to really know. Like I would put maybe like Louis Gohmert in this category, which I have a little bit less contempt for. Like if you're really too dumb to understand that this is all some cynical political ploy, then I sort of just feel a little bad for you. And then you have people like Hawley, like Cruz. They know better. They're not willing to go all the way in down conspiracy alley. And so what do they rely on? And Ted Cruz is actually like the king of this. He relies on using this like overly intellectual style and these obscure historical facts to kind of bulldoze people with his intellect, where it sounds like he's making a really smart and important point. And that's what Bret does there very effectively. He's like, look, I did my research, I know the history, and I know you're full of it, and I'm going to call you on it right there. So that's why that particular segment was so illustrative, because it had all of those elements of highbrow stop the steal, of like, well, let me throw out this obscure historical precedent,
like, no, look,
and he gets called on it.
That's one thing. It's like, you're not wrong, but like, it's like, at the key is like, what are you trying to do? And I understand the political impulse. I am dubious do not think it will work. I'm sure it has worked in the near term. But you can see this whenever this becomes the beating heart of the party, and this is where I blame Trump, which is that then it just obscures a lot of problems.
It's 100% Trump's fault.
I think you saw that with Russiagate, too, right? Which is that you had, I think, like Bernie, I always thought, I'm like, this guy knows better than else, impeachment, blah, blah, blah. But he had to do it because it was one of those just elite liberal things that you couldn't get past it. And I think that's probably where we are today. That's basically where Trump has forced us into the political litmus test of whether you're with him or not. And it's just amazing to me because you have people who have betrayed Trump on every policy agenda for the reasons that he got elected and are now like, I'm going to, not certify the election. I'm like, you guys didn't do anything to help his presidency. When you're like the people who oppose stimulus checks are like, I'm not going to. But which one of those two things do you think would have helped Trump get elected? I am 100% certain if they had passed those checks before the election, he wouldn't have won re-election.
Yep.
No, I have no question in my mind. And yet, this has now become what it's all about.
In fact, I think it's very easy to argue that if Trump just hadn't gone down the rabbit hole of throwing all this mud on the mail-in voting process, he probably would have won.
Yeah, I know. That's probably true, too.
Even you look at a state like Georgia, as close as that was, they had tens of thousands of people who had voted in the primary, Republican primary, by mail and didn't vote in the general because probably all of this doubt had been cast on the mail-in. I think that alone could have changed. So in that regard, all of this stop the steal election fraud nonsense literally cost him the presidency, I truly believe. At the same time, you have Mitch McConnell. This is a bizarre statement. So McConnell did not want Hawley or anyone else to challenge the certification because smartly he realizes that this is a terrible situation for Republicans. But he reportedly, according to Politico, told senators on a recent conference call that, quote, "This is a very difficult decision for each one of you. You each have to make it yourselves. I voted twice on declarations of war," and he said, "This is right up there. But there's a lot of noise out there, and I won't judge anybody for their decision." What are you talking about? Wow. Voting to go with the president that the American people elected does not come close to approaching the responsibility of sending our men and women to fight and die overseas. You have lost your mind.
Also, he didn't vote the right way on that one.
Well, there's that too.
That was the other. I was like, well, I don't know if that's necessarily the ones. I'm not sure. I think he might have meant it that it's the same level of gravity, like voting against an election certification is the same thing whenever it comes to democracy. In general, let's leave war.
Does this whole follow your heart thing?
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's the other thing. Don't
follow
actually
the will of the people.
Also, don't follow the heart whenever it comes to war. That's the other, absolutely don't do that. That's what happened there. So let's just leave war with war, and then we can litigate that, and this with where we currently are. All right.
Tomorrow on Rising, another superstar panel. We got Michael Starr Hopkins, Marshall Kosloff, Brianna Joy Gray is going to join us, as well as the author of The Hidden History of the American Oligarchy, Tom Hartman. He's going to join us to talk about his book.
Always fun. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our videos. Don't forget to like and share as well. And we will see you all tomorrow.
Have a great day, guys.